It can get lonely climbing Mount McKinley, so to entertain myself, I go to ChumbaCasino.com. At Chumba Casino, I can play hundreds of online casino-style games for free, like online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Plus, I get a daily login bonus. It's just too bad that up here, I don't have anyone to share my excitement with. Woohoo!
Live the Chumba life. Anytime, anywhere. Play for free now at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. This is Cinesmack. And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 115 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director Kyle Smashy Eggman Fine.
Oh, yeah, don't anyone tell me where I can and can't jizz, just so you know.
Second, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions. Hi, girl. I'm not going to shoot Emma Watson.
The end is nigh, people. The end is nigh.
Third, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios. Andrew will always have the disableds. Zumwalt.
Hermione just stole all of our shit!
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films. Tom, I call him Channing Taint Yum Haggis.
I don't need. This is probably redundant, but take your panties off. I'm sure you already have.
Well,
I told you to go to bed.
Real quick before we get started, I want to do a shout out to our monkey, Ron Calvert, for doing an awesome job on last month's announcer voiceover work that he did for us. I hope everyone enjoyed that. He was pretty proud of it and pretty nervous for everyone to hear it. So, Ron, you did an awesome job.
Here,
Yeah.
Rabble.
Yeah.
I didn't get a harumph out
Fantastic.
of that guy.
It was really good, yeah.
Yes,
No, it was very
cool.
good, Ron. Thank you.
It's awesome.
All right, let's poke the monkey, find out what we're discussing tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, aliens, androids, angels, and demons, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two groups of friends go toe-to-toe in a battle to save mankind and each other. Who will save the world with a soulful crawl, drinking and drugs, and who will crumble under the pressure of their pending doom? In the first corner, from 2013, written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, directed by Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and Martin Freeman, The World's End. In the second corner, from 2013, written by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and Jason Stowe. Directed by Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen. Starring James Franco, Jonah Hill, and Seth Rogen. This is the end.
We're doing two quote unquote end of the world movies. Disaster movies are usually kind of high up on Tom and I's list, so I can't wait to see how Tom grades both of these movies. But without further ado, let's start it off with our first round, which is writing.
All right, I'm going to do something I never ever do, which is keep it short and sweet. I believe that both of these movies have a stack of paper that says it's a script, but I only believe one of these movies really used one. So the writing category for me is very heavily favored in one direction, where I think, the story has purpose and an underlying message and a meaning, and is not mostly the improv bits from Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen from The 40-Year-Old Virgin. They just do it over and over again for most of the movie. So I don't have much else to say other than that. I feel like improv in movies is good, but there has to be something more to your movie than just 2 hours of dick jokes. And I'm a guy who likes dick jokes, but come on, man.
Yeah, I think I agree with that completely. It's pretty clear that one was highly ad-libbed and only had a kind of a mild structure. But I also felt like both of them really didn't know exactly how to end their stories.
Yep.
I kind of felt like they didn't really know how to close them out. I thought the writing on one was far superior than the other, but still had problems at times. And I guess we should probably just maybe start naming these. I don't know if Kyle didn't want to give away his vote right away.
Wait, can I guess? Is this a trivia round partly?
You'll be surprised.
This is the end. I felt like was pretty meandering from a story standpoint, and that there was kind of a structure to it, but it was more. It was more just kind of goofing off. How many people can we get in this kind of thing, And it meandered a lot. Whereas The World's End definitely had more of a concise story to it, and it was structured better. There were a couple of parts that I thought in The World's End that kind of one was kind of like it slowed down. One of the amazing things about that movie is the pacing, and it starts in the writing, and we'll get into the rest of that maybe in directing. But there's one part where it slows way down, and I'm like, oh, this part for some reason is kind of slow. And there was a lot of exposition where they were just kind of telling you what was going on. It's where they were interacting with the alien voice, the alien leader or whatever. And I felt like it kind of slowed down there, and then it picked up again, and then they didn't know how to end it. So I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts on writing on these two at this time.
No, I think I agree with you. That was the thing that stuck out the most to me, is that the third act on both of these movies really just kind of, and I don't know how they should have ended them, but they both had that same, all right, so how do we wrap this up? And neither of them really kind of hit it on the head, really. I think the World's End, I mean, both of them, obviously. I mean, World's End has a better job, like an overall theme of it, with the, do we really change and do we really mature as we get older, or does the world change around us? What really happens there? At the same time, this is the end. I mean, it is a lot of it is ad-libbed, but it is really, really funny. The part that I would give the most credit to is all of the in The World's End, that all of the foreshadowing that's done throughout the entire movie is so layered, and there's so many little hints about what's to come, and the fact that they tell you the entire story at the very beginning and through the names of the pubs, which are all very cleverly named, I thought was. It was great. I thought it was, and is it Simon Pegg and Nick Frost? Did they write this?
Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg.
Okay, so I think that's that definitely, I think, gives World's End the lead in my mind at this point, unless something changes my mind.
I actually felt that This Is the End was a Adam Sandler movie where he just brings all of his friends someplace and they shoot a movie because they can and it would be funny, and they just kind of do stuff and see what they can come out of, except it wasn't Adam Sandler.
Yeah, oh, it definitely felt like that.
I mean, this was Hawaii if it was Adam Sandler.
Yeah, it would have been in Hawaii.
So they could all get a vacation.
Right. But this was just, hey, let's just do this thing. We have a funny idea. Let's just kind of do this thing and see what happens.
Oh yeah, I mean the pot smoke was still hanging in the air when the opening credits started. You could hear Franco and Rogan sitting around talking, working out the details of the story while getting high, and it was and I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about This Is the End, is that it feels like it really kind of comes from a true place more so than World's End. That these guys really enjoy being around each other. And Hollywood hasn't turned them into total douchebags. So
it's hard to be
really.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say it's hard because when you see a movie that you go, oh, this was someone's idea that they wrote down on a napkin, but that's kind of where they stopped. That's what really started to bug me. Was like, you could fit this movie on a napkin. And just insert ad-lib gags here and there, and that, as someone who really loves the craft of writing, bothers me that they didn't try to add anything extra or meaningful to it, that it was just a ton of gags. And I think if there weren't sober people editing it, it might have ended up worse. It's like when you're drunk and you think you have a really great idea, and then when you sober up and someone tells you, you go, oh, I'm an idiot, don't listen to me when I'm drunk.
Yeah. Well, think about, and again, this is probably for another category, but think about the editing of something like that. You get together with a loose framework, do a bunch of ad-libbing, and then you got to try to edit that together.
Yeah.
And make something out of it. That's challenging.
Yeah, I don't know though, but I mean, look at the years of talent you had coming, with Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen. I think they, like, on set, they knew what they were doing. That they're so good at their craft that they can ad-lib but still keep it in the framework of the story. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm sure the editor just had miles and miles of gags to pick out the best ones. But I know to say that they left the editor with a mess to clean up, I think you would have been able to tell. It would have been a much worse movie. But I don't know. They're all just such funny guys. And Emma Watson.
Emma Watson. I don't know if she was dating somebody or if there's someone.
I'm sure Mike has trivia on it. Mike has trivia on it.
Getting pot, or I don't know, but they got her.
Hermione
on
doesn't
set,
smoke pot.
And
come on now.
I don't know. All I know is that she was on set for a short amount of time. That was way too short for me. And should have been on there much more, or just not even been in it. Anyways, okay. So the last thing I want to talk about, or one of the things I want to talk about, is the World's End being the third in the trilogy, in the Cornetta trilogy of, your Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and how they all link together, but yet don't link together, and that to me really kind of fills out that entire 3 set that we've been watching over the last few years. And that I really enjoyed that. And they kept a lot of the same themes that they started with Shaun of the Dead. They repeated in Hot Fuzz, and they've repeated in The World's End. And I thought that was pretty brilliant.
Yeah, and they keep some of the same gags too. The jumping over the fence gag isn't all of those.
Yeah.
Well, and even at the end when they're eating their mint chocolate chip, and then you see the Cornetta wrapper on the fence. I mean, they really are trying.
1 minute.
I really enjoyed that. So.
Yeah, and I just want to say about This Is the End that one of the fun things about the writing, though, is how they took all these real people and then kind of riffed on their personalities. They took, presumably for most of them, they gave them exaggerated or personality traits that were opposite of what they were really like. And I think of Michael Cera and his character in particular, because they made him a total douchebag. And I'm like, I hope he's not really like that, because he seems like he's actually a really nice guy. And I read somewhere something about him, about his character and how they just like went over the top, going completely the opposite of what he's really like in real life. And so I have to give him credit for that. I thought that was.
He gave all skinny white guys the ability to become a sex symbol, though, because like everybody wanted him in the movie for whatever
Time's
reason.
Yeah.
All right, time's up, boys. Let's vote. Kyle.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with The World's End.
Okay. Gabe.
Yeah, I'm going to go with The World's End as well.
Andrew.
The World's End.
And Tom.
Yeah, just for the construction of the Golden Mile. World's End.
All right. Seth Rogen gave an interview where he described how the script written by Evan Goldberg and him combined real characteristics of the actors, who then produced bizarre alternate versions of themselves with elements that had absolutely nothing in common with the cast. Craig Robinson echoed this point in a separate interview when he said that Michael Cera's portrayal in the film, a drug-using, ass-grabbing, utterly obnoxious loudmouth, was the epitome of not Michael Cera.
Yeah. I think that's fun.
Wait, are they trying to say that like Seth Rogen and James Franco exaggerated and Jonah Hill? Because I don't believe that they were exaggerated in any way.
As this is the conclusion of the Cornetto trilogy, the characters are seen eating peppermint with chocolate chip, which the Cornetto green wrapper represents, according to Edgar Wright. Green represents science fiction and extraterrestrial elements, which is the main motif in the film. For Wright's other films, Shaun of the Dead used red and strawberry flavor, symbolizing blood and zombies, while the second part, Hot Fuzz, was blue and vanilla, symbolizing the police.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I didn't know that he used different flavors. That's pretty cool.
All right, second round, acting.
Wow. Yeah, I think we touched on it just slightly in the writing part. And I think, the big thing for This Is the End is the cameos. I don't know that there's a lot of, like hardcore acting going on, because we have determined that a lot of it is ad-libbed. And that's a lot of fun. And like Tom said, I did laugh a lot. I thought, this is dumb, where's it going? But there were some pretty funny gags. And so those actors get together and just having a good time and ad-libbing was entertaining at the very least. And again, I don't know if there was any really, hardcore acting going on there, but it was fun to watch them together, and it was really fun to see all the random cameos that they had. Like Rihanna, like really, it just was. It was pretty fun.
There's a great story about that.
Okay, yeah.
You just described a live-action Muppet movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was fun. And I did laugh a lot. I laughed out loud. I definitely enjoyed it at points. The World's End, those guys, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and I love those guys. I really love to see them working together. I think they have a lot of good chemistry. I really enjoy them. I think they're comedic, just to the edge of being over the top, but never go too far with it. I really enjoy that cast in The World's End. I thought it was a pretty solid cast and pretty well acted. It's very different from what we saw in This Is the End. But yeah, I don't know. I just like those guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been a big fan of Nick Frost and Simon Pegg for a long time. So I think they did a great job in this movie. One of the things I really enjoy about Edgar Wright's movies, especially these 3 in this trilogy, is that there is a heart in there, and there's always some seriousness to it, even if it's only briefly. So even these comedic movies, it's cool to watch these hilarious actors share a serious moment together, and it really does lend a heart to the script and make you care about the characters. I mean, they're not just all goofs and fuck ups and drunks, and they have they display real character attributes, and they feel like real people. And I think that's a credit to the cast for sure. The supporting cast too, they get around them, and just some of the extras, and they must be small time comedic actors or character actors or something like that, because they're just great. I mean, even the little people you barely would know in the movie, they don't spend any time in the movie, are great. So, and I think that from a British acting standpoint, the cast in The World's End is top notch. It's amazing. This is the end. They say one of the hardest things to do is to play yourself, right? So they play like an exaggerated version of themselves, and I think people do it pretty well. The cameos, I agree, are great. That's kind of why you watch these movies, to see who's going to show up. And this movie was full of that stuff. So if you're really into that, this is a great movie for you. But it's hard to stack it up against the acting in The World's End 1-to-1 and say these people did a better job, if you know what I mean, playing their performances. But I don't think anybody was necessarily bad. And I think some of the characters, like drunk, coked out Michael Cera, were really fun. And I mean, I'm sure that's difficult to play that version of yourself, but he did a really good job. And so it was a lot of fun. I really liked Christopher Mintz-Plasse, although he's not in it very much. But when he gets the cocaine blown in his face, I like his reaction. I'm
not used to
I've
this
never
drunk.
done this drunk before. It's just such an honest reaction. And I really enjoyed that part. But yeah, it was really cool to get all the people they got on set. You can tell it's like a Hollywood film of like, here's all the people we know and that are fans of us, and we can get them on set together.
Yeah, there were a couple parts in This Is the End where like, I mean, these guys are really great actors, and they say comedy is hard to do. And I mean, especially in a room like that, where I'm sure they're just, I don't say they're trying to top each other, because they're obviously generous enough actors to let each of them have their moment, and they know who's supposed to have the stage in any one given moment, which isn't easy. But there were some moments where I was just like, God, that's a really bad line read. Like I was surprised at some points where I was surprised that made it in. And sometimes it was during some of the more serious parts, but which weren't very many. Whereas I think one of the things I'd say, because and I love Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz like everybody else, but what I noticed about World's End is that they give Nick Frost a more room to kind of flex his dramatic muscles in this one by starting him out as kind of the straight player in this one. Because I think in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, Simon Pegg plays the straight guy to Nick Frost's foil, and for this one they flip it, And I think that Nick Frost, some of those more serious moments, where he hasn't quite, kind of come out of his teetotal cocoon, he's there's some really good acting there, and I don't know if you'd ever be interested in doing kind of some heavier stuff, but it's possible.
Well, and even if you look at some of his other films that Nick Frost and Simon Pegg have done, like Paul, for instance, Nick Frost is pretty serious in it, and it's a different type of character than the dolt that they normally have him, the goofy dolt that he was in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, like you said. I also find it really fascinating in how well these guys perform in all 3 of their movies. They always start off as one type of character, and by the end of the movie, that character has very obviously grown, and you can tell a difference between when they started to where they're ending. And to be able to build that arc as an actor and be able to portray that and consistently through all 3 of those movies, I think shows some pretty good acting chops in itself. Because sometimes that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Are you guys done?
And then there was this. Then there was this one time.
Let's talk about directing quick before Mike can cut us off.
We can jump right into directing.
I can tell you that the role of Emma Watson played was originally written for Mila Kunis.
See, and I mean, I don't know what circles they run in, but that makes a lot of sense.
That
makes way more sense than Emma Watson.
But at the same time,
choice,
then yeah, but if Mila shows up, then you got to bring Ashton, and who wants to fucking deal with that?
Who's going to be a producer?
Yeah.
All right. If you guys are done talking about acting, we can vote on it.
Don't jinx it. Just go.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, I enjoyed the ad-libbing in This Is the End, but I'm going to give my vote to The World's End because the acting I thought was superior.
Okay. Andrew?
I'm going for The World's End because they acted.
All right. Tom?
I'm going to give it to World's End. If Mila Kunis had been in This Is the End, they would have gotten it. But, you know, since they brought in Emma Watson, I'm not a fan of British actors, so I'm going to go with The World's End. The irony's
I get it.
on me.
Kyle?
Segued perfectly into mine. I have a real soft spot for British actors, so I'll go for The World's End.
All right.
Starting to feel a little lopsided, fellas.
It is.
Can Emma Watson be our +1 though?
I'm fine with that.
Rosamund Pike almost didn't get the part. She was pregnant when filming was meant to begin on The World's End. Eventually, work was rescheduled for all of them. I don't know what they mean by all of them.
Look at that. They're doing female and women empowerment. I like it.
Okay.
A lot of Hollywood.
Do you think they rescheduled so she could be in it? Or was it rescheduled for another reason? And
I don't know.
Lucked out?
That's all it says.
I mean, because like some movies they shoot even though the girl's pregnant and they just kind of they're like, we're going to shoot around it. Because Scarlett Johansson was pregnant and they just were like, you're still going to play Black Widow.
Did they just CG out the baby bump?
They just shoot her from the waist up as much as they can, and any of the far shots, they make sure it's either from behind or if they have to, they can do CG stuff. But she was pregnant for the second half of Avengers Endgame.
Do they use that De Niro face de-aging shit on Scarlett Johansson's belly?
If you were to digitally remove a baby, is that controversial?
No.
No. Digitally, it's okay.
I think you're reaching a bit.
Yeah.
I should have asked them that in the debate.
Here's some female empowerment.
Use special effects
For you, Andrew. Initially, Michael Cera was not actually slapping Rihanna's butt, but rather than making the motion and stopping right before touching her. As a result, the enclosed space forcing awkward camera angles, the scene was not working on camera because it looked too fake. Eventually, Sarah asked Rihanna if he could actually slap her butt. She said yes, but on the condition that she be allowed to really smack him across the face each time. Sarah agreed, but Rihanna neglected to mention, much to Sarah's chagrin, she would be slapping Sarah harder with each take. She beat the shit out of him. It sounds. I mean, that can't be too hard with Michael Cera, right? Back to one.
Okay, but you would think that Rihanna would be like, "Oh, he really wants to spank me." Okay. I mean, it's Rihanna.
The slap looks pretty good. I got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, it does. All right, third round, directing.
Whew. All right. Well, we're going to start with Mr. Evan Goldberg and Mr. Seth Rogen. I've seen other films that at least Seth Rogen, I know for a fact, has directed, and it's been a part of that creativity to get shots. So I feel that it wasn't necessarily badly directed. I just feel that it was, we have shots that we need to get people are going to say stuff. We kind of just have to roll with them, and we're going to get what we get. And then there were the moments of them doing the office style interviews, which I thought was kind of a throwaway. And then there were the, how many shots can we get in one scene? And it just felt, I think amateur is a bad word, because technically everyone is an amateur when it comes to this kind of stuff. But it was just awkward in a lot of places. And I'm not really sure that there was good direction, and maybe the cinematographer was kind of on his own. Again, I don't know how easy it would be to actually direct these actors to be able to get what you think you want. But as Seth Rogen being a character in it, I don't know. I don't know how much directing there was. It may have just been, this is the moment, this is the scene that's going on, make it funny and roll. I don't know, but it felt very much like that. It felt very less structured, and a lot of just throwaways just to get some footage. But maybe you have a different take on that. That's just how I felt with watching some of the way that they did some of the movements, and it was just really bizarre. Again, may have been the cinematographer, not the director, but I don't know. As to The World's End, Edgar Wright has a very, let's say, specific way of filming. He has a look, and it's very obvious. There are things that he does. I wouldn't say they're gimmicks, but they're Edgar Wright moments. He's very similar to Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi can shoot a movie, and there are things that he does that you go, this is a Sam Raimi movie. People have tried to duplicate. It's very difficult. Edgar Wright has a very similar idea. Has a very similar style. He has a style that is Edgar Wright. If you watch an Edgar Wright movie, you will see similar shots. You will see similar things that he does. The quick cuts is one of the best examples, I think, that he's probably most famous for, of doing the quick cuts as one motion. And he cut, and all the person did was get coffee, but he shoots it from different angles and he moves it in, and it's very Edgar Wright. I don't know. There were some really cool shots. I would say my favorite shot out of the entire film is at the end when they are being the big Western posse and they're walking into the apocalyptic. That entire scene is just so well done and has that gritty Western kind of feel to it that I thought that was probably one of my favorite areas of screen time. Some of the bar scenes where there's actual fighting, like in the bathrooms and stuff, they did some really, really cool camera tricks to be able to pull off realistic looking beheadings of the robots, landing and hitting their heads, actual throws and fights. They did some really cool camera tricks that led into obviously some of the editing to make smaller adjustments to really make those shine through. So I thought that was pretty smart and intelligent. But again, Edgar Wright's been doing especially these type of movies for quite some time. So that's my take. There might be more, but for now, I'll let it simmer. You guys take the flame.
Yeah,
One of the
oh, go ahead, Tom.
One of the things that I've noticed with, oh crap, Gabe, you go ahead. I had total brain fart.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I blew it for you, Tom. That was my fault.
It's entirely your fault. But go ahead.
Yes, I take full responsibility. I was just going to say that Edgar Wright has to be one of my favorite directors. I really enjoy his stuff. I enjoy his style. And one of the things that I noticed right off the bat was pacing. He just has this frenetic pace that it just never lets up. Well, almost never lets up. There were a couple of points in this movie that I mentioned during the writing where I felt like the pace kind of slowed down, and didn't really fit with the rest of the film. But overall, his pacing is just fantastic. And I always wonder how they keep up that kind of pacing during the filming, because he has to know somewhere like in his head, he has to have that pacing, and he has to be able to communicate that to the actors so that they say their lines at the right, pace, and they move through the scene at the same pace. And, but that it's really noticeable in this and other films. I think it's really noticeable, and he's honing it in films like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is one of my favorite films, and the pacing and the editing and the style is just fantastic. And Baby Driver. Now that one's a little different because it's really remarkable too, and he has a reference for the pacing in Baby Driver because it's always paced to a song. Almost always there's a song that the movie goes along with and is edited to, and so that to me is one of the things that stands out the most about Edgar Wright, and I really admire it. And I think that's something that was really missing from This Is the End. The pacing was inconsistent. Every once in a while, it would be almost like an action movie, and other times it would slow way down, and you're like, what's happening, and why are we taking so long on this? And it just would slow way down, and then it would speed way back up, and it would be like, oh, we're getting chased by, a demon with its dick out, and then it would slow way down. And I just really felt like that was missing. And that might have something to do with what we talked about before, in that it wasn't really strictly planned out. It was just kind of, here we've got a story, we've got a structure, but we're going to play within that structure. Go. And that's what it ended up happening is you lose that pacing. So I don't know. That's one of the most noticeable things about directing between these two films in my mind.
Yeah, when every single time I watch an Edgar Wright movie, I walk away from the first time and I go, what the hell was that? And I never know where he's going with it or what his tones are. And it's always really hard for me to get an idea of like what is he trying to accomplish with this story? And it happened all through the Cornetto trilogy. It happened in Baby Driver and happened in Scott Pilgrim. And it's so hard for me to get a read on him the first time through. But amazingly, like his movies sink their teeth into me, and it's not his movies I can't just put down. And then it could be a couple of days or a couple months later, it'll come back and I'll be like, all right, I'll give it a second chance now that I know what he's going for. And I absolutely love it the second time. Scott Pilgrim, I really disliked the first time I saw it. I didn't really? Get what he was trying to do. Yeah, I didn't. And I'm just like, oh, is this like a video game? Now it's like my number 3 on my all-time list. And so it's really hard for me to kind of get around it. And it happened with this one too. The first time I saw it, a couple years ago when we were originally going to do this fight, I was like, I don't know. I think This Is the End is going to blow this one away. This is not nearly as good as Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. But now that I've gone back and seen it, a second time, I can really appreciate how much work was put into it. That being said, Evan Goldberg did a pretty good job putting together a story from what was essentially, 2 hours of an improv class.
To your point, though, I'm curious. When you saw Shaun of the Dead for the first time, did you hate that? I was like, oh, it's zombie comedy. Cool, I guess. I mean, I just, Okay. No, I was just curious
because
if his directing style
15 seconds
threw you off. Oh, really?
I haven't even talked yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kyle.
I love Edgar Wright. Very few directors make more out of a scene than Edgar Wright. He uses his transitions incredibly well. I just want to highlight one scene. All right, there's a transition he has to do from the bar to the table. You could do anything, and most directors wouldn't do anything at all. But he has one guy order a water, so you get action music, you get 4 pints of beer, you get 1 pint of water as the music fades out, you get a visual gag, you get the transition, you get everything. And that, to me, is brilliant. And that's the mark of like high filmmaking, is that everything counts, it all matters, and it all works towards furthering the story. And that's why I love Edgar Wright.
And developing the characters too.
Yes, I love it.
That's part of character development as well.
You can have a couple more minutes, Kyle.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm gonna go ahead and pass and say I didn't really care for This Is the End that much, and it just made me realize I've kind of grown out of these movies, and that makes me a little sad because I used to really love dick and fart joke movies and cum movies and sex movies and all that stuff. But
we haven't started overall, or are we just bleeding into it?
Oh, I'm bleeding into it.
Yeah,
we're just going.
bleeding
Okay,
into
cool. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Look, he did a serviceable job getting anything out of this, because this could have been a fucking train wreck. I think he did a good job picking the best gags, because there are a lot of funny moments in the movie. And I've seen some of the deleted scenes and other stuff. And yeah, I think he probably picked the best stuff. And I cannot imagine the long days. I mean, I would assume when you're on set or whatever and you're trying to do a professional job, you're sober. But there's a chance that some of these days could have turned into 14 hours of babysitting a bunch of drunk or high people.
Yeah.
And that would have just been a nightmare. But I imagine they kept, I imagine they kept it pretty professional, and it's, above board and everything. But goddamn, that could have been a nightmare. If these characters were like what they are in the movie, it could have been a nightmare.
All right. Let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
I love me some Mr. Right in my eye hole, so The World's End.
Oh my. Tom.
I'm going to go with This Is the End.
All right.
He's going to give it one.
Wow.
Kyle.
Oh, I am going to go with This Is the End. Wait, no, The World's End. I knew I was going to do that. I knew I was going to do that at least once. The Simon Pegg one.
Gabe.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Edgar Wright. I'm going to go with The World's End as well.
All right. Director Evan Goldberg created a game for himself during filming of This Is the End. The goal of the game was to get as many cast members as possible to say, no, I can't do that, or get them to refuse to do something. According to Goldberg, the only people he was not able to break were James Franco and Seth Rogen.
Surprise!
Yeah.
This is my not surprise face.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Now.
The World's End progresses through 3 increasingly larger negative formats. The opening flashback footage is standard 16 millimeter, and then up until the robots, it's 3 perf Super 35. And from then, it's 4 perf Panavision anamorphic until the ending scene, which switch back to Super 35.
What, really?
Yep.
I did not notice that.
Wonder why.
But your brain did.
That's just...
Maybe it did. Now that I know that, I might be able to tell.
That's just
Edgar Wright. Go back and
Wright.
watch and look for that.
That's interesting. Because I imagine the image quality, without lots of manipulation or something, the image quality is probably different on those films because it's larger format. And
your field of view would be much different as well through the camera. Boy, that's really fascinating. I
go back and rewatch it now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Wow. It makes me think of The Dark Knight or whatever, where he shot some of it in
IMAX.
Yeah, but you can tell.
Yes.
Yeah.
The aspect ratio changes, and you can tell when those scenes come on, and it's kind of cool, but also kind of weird. But in this instance, I didn't notice the change, and maybe I just thought it was more of a stylistic change as opposed to an actual technical change as well.
But going from Super 35 to IMAX, that's a huge freaking jump.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a good one.
All right. Let's move on to our 4th and final round overall.
I don't know. I kind of talked already about Edgar Wright and my history with him. I know that This Is the End. I think one of the problems I think This Is the End has is that the cast is so big, and these people are supposedly kind of playing these weird iterations of themselves. And there is bound to be one person in this movie that you absolutely hate in real life, that you hate their movies and they've never done anything good. And so you have this really fun movie, but there's always this glaring spot, whether you hate Michael Cera and you're a total douchebag, or you hate Jonah Hill, there's or Seth Rogen or James Franco. I mean, there's somebody in there that you probably dislike very much. And I feel like maybe that's something that kind of holds people back from really enjoying it. Do you guys, is there someone in this movie that you guys hated?
Like, as the character that they played, or like
in real
as
life,
we imagine them in real life?
In real life, you try to avoid their movies.
No, because I've seen movies with a lot of these people, especially like James Franco. Like I used to think he just made garbage movies, but then what was it? The 27 days?
127 hours.
127 hours. I saw
27 hours.
100,
He gave up fast.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal in that movie.
He is good.
And so, you know, he actually knows how to act, and he does a really good job. But I mean, all of these actors, I would say, I've seen in other things that are highly enjoyable. Whether they be comedies or serious films. Seth Rogen recently did The Long Shot, which is just a bizarre matchup with Charlize Theron, and he's phenomenal in it. It's probably the best acting I've ever seen Seth Rogen do, and it's a really great, funny movie, and he does a fantastic job. So I know all these people can act, and I know that they have the chops. So I wouldn't say I hate anyone specifically. It's more of just, I think they just had some money to. It felt like they had money to spare, and they thought this would be a fun thing to do for the weekend.
Right. No, absolutely. And you know, if I'm gonna make a movie, I'm gonna make it with my friends too. You know, if Sony's gonna give me $32 million, I'm gonna like, well, let's go have some fun, guys. You know, but I don't. You know, like I said, the third act on both of them suffer quite a bit. World's End is a lot better than it was the first time I saw it, and you know, I like that. It does, you know, like there's little nods to the first two Cornetto movies, but it doesn't lean on it. It really tries to be its own thing. So, I mean, they got to have some credit for that. You know, there are some franchises that have borrowed heavily from earlier movies in the franchise, as we all know. So, I don't know. I really, really like This Is the End. I liked it a lot more the second time that I saw it. So, I don't know. I guess I should watch every movie twice.
Yeah.
Do you think
ain't nobody got time for that?
Do you think that the actors or the directors of these movies are partially sitting in the editing room? Because it feels like people like Edgar Wright are sitting in the editor's chair next to the editor, or even doing some of the editing to make sure. Whereas it feels like for This Is the End, it was, you guys have seen the storyboards, make it work. And I don't know that for a fact. I'm completely speculation, but it feels like there are some directors that have a hand in the editing more than others.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
I could picture
Edgar Wright is an editor, right?
Yeah,
like,
he's an editor. Yeah.
You can just.
Come on, Mike. Why you gotta ruin everything for me? I'm trying to get conversation. Damn it!
Sorry,
stop our time.
He's not. Here, I'll pause it. He's probably sitting next to his editor, but at heart, he is an editor. You can just tell by the way he shoots. He is shooting for the edit, right? Yes. So that's one thing that I try to do is while I'm shooting, I'm editing in my head. And I think that's a great thing to have. Sorry, go ahead. Resume.
Again, you can tell that with, again, some, like I mentioned before, some of the shots that he did that were done realistically, you know, with some of the fakes and the doubles and things like that for the fight scenes, and just the way that he shot them, so that way they could be realistic lighting and realistic objects and keeping people out of danger, but then it got edited later to make it look like they hit the wall or whatnot. So you can tell that he is. It's something I've started noticing with directors. If they're really just directing or if they're the editor's, companion as well. And I believe Edgar Wright is, but
I would think so. I mean, his stuff is so, I don't know, I would say tight is a good word, and everything just matters. Even the transitions matter and things like that. So I just don't think he leaves that kind of stuff up to chance by letting someone else figure it out, but I wouldn't know absolutely for sure. And it's possible that, Evan Goldberg was sitting in there while they did the edit and picking the best gags and stuff like that. There's probably just had different outcomes in mind. This Is the End is very much like how many laughs can we get, how many gags can we put in, and the story is really secondary. It did remind me, though, I gotta say, the ending of it, reminded me of Grease. Did you guys see the Backstreet ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where they're flying up in the car.
Yeah. So that just reminds me of Grease, because I think that's another movie where they go to heaven and probably everybody sings and dances because for some reason there's a flying car. But they just end up in heaven and Backstreet's there. I don't know why, but it gave me real Grease vibes.
Smoking pot and,
Yeah, lighting it off your halo. That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what I found is I was not expecting going into this to learn something about myself as a film viewer. But I think I might have moved past some of the dick and fart joke movies. It just did not resonate with me, and I found myself really much more compelled by The World's End because it had structure and a story, and it wasn't just gags. And it knew when to be more reserved, and it wasn't just constantly, I'm gonna sound like an old person, curse words and foul language and vulgar stuff. But I mean, that's all it had going for it. And that's I don't necessarily care for that anymore, which is the exact opposite of what I was when I was, 16 to 36. So it's just, it was interesting to have that realization after watching the movie, being like, I did not really care for that.
But again, I would agree with everyone saying that there were parts that you laugh and you're like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's not. I think it's just the over exaggeration that they just tried. It's kind of like the South Park episode where they tried to see how many times they could say shit.
Yeah,
and it just seemed like, how far can we take this movie and get away with this and that and say stupid shit and just shock and laugh people. And I think that's the difference.
You guys ever watch a movie and a joke comes through and you go, that was funny, but you don't laugh? You understand the structure of the gag and you go, oh, that's clever. Yes. But it just doesn't elicit a laugh from you? That's kind of what it was like. No? Okay.
I'm at the point now.
See it happening and you go, oh, yeah, I get it. That's funny. But it doesn't actually make you laugh. You just get the gag.
That happens. But I think, for This Is the End, the jokes are really funny, but I think what I really enjoy is knowing how much fun these guys had making it. On the surface, the jokes as they're written are kind of okay, but the way that they're delivered, and that they're just trying to crack each other up, and that these are some of the funniest actors we have right now. And just imagining how much fun they had on the set. I get lost in it, and I don't know, maybe I'm circling back around to Gross Old Man because I laughed at the dick jokes. And
yeah, Kyle, it'll come back as you.
Just give it a little bit.
You'll become the dirty old man or the dom.
Tom, you're talking to a guy
ahead of the curve because I started out growing it back around There's Something About Mary, where I was just like, this is all dick jokes. And so I'm way ahead of where I should be.
Tom, you're talking to a guy that still laughs hysterically at the campfire fart scene in Blazing Saddles.
That's still funny.
That's just offensive. That's offensive.
That's still funny.
Grow up. You should be moving on to masturbation jokes, Mike. Come on.
No, I like where I'm at.
I've settled into a night.
That yelling scene between Danny McBride and Seth Rogen.
Yes,
that's so great. Oh my god,
that was
Danny McBride's a good yeller.
He is.
Yeah. Damn, he plays the same character in every movie.
I'm not a huge fan of his, but he's really good in this. And the way he comes in, where he's just kind of like, he just kind of ups the chaos by just being there. I love it.
Right.
Well, Penn Jillette has stated that there's nothing funnier than a large man yelling on stage. Like he just said, there's something funny about that, and it's always going to be funny. And I get that from Danny McBride.
Yeah. Danny
By
McBride
the way, time's
is,
up. But
is that what that was? That sound?
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Danny McBride is that guy that I kind of don't want to like, that Tom was talking about. But I think it's only because of the characters that he plays. He always plays these really douchebag characters. And it makes me not want to like him, but I don't think he's really like that. I think he's just really good at playing that character.
You don't think
he's actually pretty funny.
You don't think he's normally a sadistic, masturbating cannibal?
No, that was crazy too. Or that was quite a. I wonder how long it was supposed to be between when he left the house and then became like a cannibalistic leader.
They didn't have
was it supposed to be like
much water
2
and
days.
food. It seemed like it was a couple days.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was pretty funny. And I want to say that I was watching This Is the End with my girlfriend, and she was laughing. We were both laughing, and I thought she was kind of actually enjoying it. And then she got up about 3/4 of the way through and she said, "I'm going to bed. This is dumb." She literally had no desire to finish it whatsoever, and she's like, "It's just stupid. It's so stupid." And then she just went to bed, and I was like, "Yeah, you're right. It is kind of stupid." But I'm kind of laughing at it at the same time, Yep. Unfortunately, she did not watch The World's End with me, and I'm not sure if she would have enjoyed that anymore or not. It's probably not really her kind of thing. I'm not sure. She probably would have. She covers her eyes whenever there's anything, scary or violent or whatever. So she would have had her eyes covered through a good portion of it, probably.
If I was drinking heavily, I may enjoy This Is the End more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right. If you, in the right mood, it was funny. I definitely laughed.
But I mean,
okay. All right, guys.
Drinking heavily brings
Mike,
us all back to our 20s. Yeah. So
I'm imagining Mike right now getting so angry because he knows we're over time and he's trying to interrupt us. But we just keep talking.
Just keep talking so he can't interrupt us.
Get a word in edgewise. Sorry. All right, I'm going to stop.
Mute us like he said he was going to.
I think he just muted us.
Yeah, I did. All right, real quick. I was reading
Bastard.
I was reading Danny McBride was making the guys crack up so much. There was one scene that took 18 takes because no one could make it through with a straight face. That was
surprised it was that little. I would expect there was more takes for a lot of those scenes.
And also, while you guys were talking, the editor for The World's End is a gentleman named Paul Mackless. His top 4 films that come up on IMDb, Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, The Gentleman, and The World's End. So he's used to working with Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
And
he knows his style.
He knows his style exactly. And then the guy who directed This Is the End is named Zane Baker. His 4 films that first show up are Thor Ragnarok, This Is the End, Neighbors, and The Interview.
So he can handle the improv footage.
He can handle the improv. Yeah. Yep.
Because there's a lot on Ragnarok too.
There was.
I was going to say, there's a lot of Seth Rogen there too.
Yeah. I find it funny. He also did Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, so he kind of has an end of the world niche to his improv as well.
Wow, he did Seeking. Really?
Yeah.
Because that's a relatively serious movie.
It is.
That's pretty.
And he also did Men in Black International. The bartenders, publicans of the first 2 bars, are by complete coincidence real life cousins, Teddy Kempner and Mark Kempner, who hadn't seen each other in years until they were reunited at the audition, according to Edgar Wright.
Oh, that's funny.
Aw, bringing family back together. It's what movies are all about.
And the body count for This Is the End is 37.
In a row?
In a row.
Yeah.
All right.
Plus all the other millions of people that didn't get saved.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's put it to a vote. We didn't do our vote. Tom.
I gotta go World's End.
Kyle.
World's End.
Gabe.
Yeah, it comes down to rewatchability. The World's End.
And Andrew.
Yeah, there's no such thing as it comes down to rewatchability. It's just The World's End. Like,
okay, well, this will be easy for me. Let's go ahead and move on to our recommendations for this.
Hey, real quick, Mike.
Yeah.
Real quick. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had mentioned about like disaster movies and
Yes.
stuff. And when you mentioned that at the beginning, these two never really registered as disaster movies for me.
Well,
like you said that, and I went, "Oh yeah, I guess they kind of are." But
Yeah.
like, and I'm always like thinking like natural disaster movies, so that's why I didn't comment on that because I thought you were off base. Anyway,
oh
more
no, I mean, it's a
world.
disaster movie. I mean, it's the end of the world, right? So
Sounds like
whether
a
it's
Roland
Alien-
Emmerich film, Off Base.
it's not environmental
there's
disaster movie.
right, not an environmental disaster.
Is that like a new genre, environmental disaster movie versus apocalyptic disaster movie?
Sure, we can
Yeah.
find them.
Maybe.
Whatever gets us to do The Happening, I'm all in.
What?
Man.
No.
No, what?
All right, recommendations, Kyle.
All right, I am going to recommend something where actors play alternate versions of themselves. And I hope I didn't recommend this before. I probably have. But it is a TV show done by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant called Extras, where every episode they have a new celebrity guest come in and play a twisted alternate version of themselves. Some of my favorites being Patrick Stewart, Kate Winslet, Samuel Jackson. So if you've never seen Extras, I highly recommend it. It's a really good show. It's hilarious. The celebrity cameos are hilarious. If you like This Is the End because of the celebrity cameos, Extras will blow your socks off. Because it's every episode is a new actor coming in and being a twisted version of themselves. So that is what I'm going to recommend this month.
I can see everything. Still one of the funniest scenes ever
They
made.
think they covered it up. Yeah, if you've never seen the Patrick Stewart scene from Extras, definitely check that out because it is my favorite portrayal of Jean-Luc Picard I've ever seen. I know he's not related to the Enterprise, but it's hilarious. Patrick Stewart doing that gag with Ricky Gervais.
Yep, it's great. All right, good pick, Kyle. Gabe.
Well, I'm with Kyle. I don't know if I've recommended this before, and I'm going to go kind of a little bit different way with it. It's still kind of an apocalyptic movie, but it's not a comedy. I'm going to recommend Children of Men. It's set in a not too distant apocalyptic future where human reproduction has stopped. And they need to help save the first woman who's been pregnant in some time, and it's really an interesting and challenging movie. And from a filmmaking standpoint, there's some really cool stuff going on. There's a couple of scenes in there that they do as single takes, and they're just incredible. Those scenes just really stand out. And this is directed by, I'll mess up his name, I'm sure, Alfonso Cuarón. And he, you may also know him from directing Gravity, which also has some, single take, scenes. Although those I think are a little bit more manipulated. They're more digital than the ones in Children of Men. It's a little bit darker. It's thematically, it's a little bit heavier, but it's really a well-made film.
Good pick, Gabe. Andrew.
I'm going to actually pick another British comedy. And it's actually more of a British dark comedy, I would say. And this one is pretty dark, comedic-wise. Especially if you're married or you're in a relationship, it definitely adds a little bit to that. And it is also an apocalyptic movie on top of that. So it kind of fits with everything we're going with tonight. It's about 4 couples, and they're all friends, and they meet for Sunday brunch every single Sunday. And on this Sunday, the world starts to end around them on the outside, and they are trapped in the house together, these 4 couples, and they have to figure out what they're going to do. And it's a disaster. If you haven't seen it, it's really, really funny. It is a specific type of comedy, so dark comedies sometimes don't feel out people very well, but if you're into that, it's quite good. Like I said, especially if you have someone you care about, such as a wife or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, I think you might enjoy this. Or a husband, I guess. So.
All right. What was the name of it?
It's a disaster.
A disaster. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Andrew. Tom?
I'm going to ask everybody to give a movie a second chance here. And look, you can watch this and you can pretend it's funny, but at its heart, it's a pretty good movie. I've got to be honest with you. And I feel like the stories about the making of the movie overshadowed it when it came out, and it kind of bombed because of that. But if you look at it on its surface, I thought it was actually pretty decent. And that's the Kevin Reynolds 1995 classic Waterworld with Kevin Costner. I thought it was really good. I thought it was not nearly as bad as everyone made it out to be. So
I would agree with you.
And if you want a comedy, it works for that as well. You can, you can laugh at it if you want, but I think it's actually pretty good. So I actually haven't seen it in like 20 years, but when I did see it, I thought it was pretty good. Thank you. I'm so sorry. You know what? You let me go last, and you deserve better. I had 3 minutes to find a movie, and I failed miserably.
I enjoyed my time watching Waterworld. I don't think I've watched it since the theater, but I remember enjoying my time.
What about
here's a fun game. Here's a fun game. Without anybody looking, I bet all of you overshoot. How long does you think that movie is?
How long?
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Since you said that, now I'm going to guess like an hour and 45 minutes.
Yes, you're going to guess
an hour and 50. But
yeah, it's 2:15. So I know people sometimes are like, it's 3 hours. It's not 3 hours. So
no.
Yeah, and Dennis Hopper.
2:15. Good, Dennis Hopper.
It does feel like it, though.
He's fantastic.
He is. Tom, you gave a nice segue to my recommendation, which is Yellowstone.
The Postman.
Yes, The Postman. Yellowstone, starring Kevin Costner, Luke Grimes, and Kelly Riley. It is a fantastic Western, modern Western on Paramount Network, and it's about a ranching family in Montana that keep happening to defend their land from people encroaching on it. And their ranch is called the Yellowstone because the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. And they made reference to it. It's about the size of Rhode Island. It's just enormous. But the acting is great. The cinematography is great. And if for anything, you need to watch it for Beth, played by Kelly Riley. So that's my recommendation, is Yellowstone. All right, let's find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your savior of mankind, by pissing off the aliens and keeping the leftover androids for themselves to serve them and drinking, is the world's end!
I think it was a mismatch this month.
I think you might be right.
I don't know. I don't know what the numbers say. I'm not a statistician. I think Tom may have voted just to prevent a shutout because I think Tom thinks shutouts are special.
That's a pretty good theory.
It's just my guess.
Tom's muted right now, so.
Are you saying that I'm protecting Danny Boyle's Sunshine as one of the few shutouts? That's absurd.
Okay.
It's absurd that I would do that. I'd like to point out though that Sunshine was a shutout. So, it did go up against a Hilary Swank sci-fi movie, so I'm not sure that counts.
1 L, 2 Oscars. That's how I remember how to spell Hillary. Mark Johnson taught me that.
That's right.
That was pretty funny.
That's right. All right. Where can people find you for their end of the world? I don't know, Tom.
People can generally find me either at the Mermaid or the Two-Headed Dog, slamming pints. I don't really drink that much, so it's actually better off finding me at Seth Rogen's house. Because I'm happy to partake in whatever it is he has going on. So.
I've never done this drug before. Andrew.
You can, I guess, find us at ArizonaInkStudios.com. We have all of our films and stuff up there. We have Twitter and Instagram, but for social media, like on Facebook, not really. But ArizonaInkStudios.com is probably the best bet. You can find links to all of our YouTube, all of our videos that we posted for some short films, and you can find link to this wonderful podcast as well. So that way you can go out and listen to it on your listening pleasure of podcasts.
Thank you, Andrew. Gabe?
Yeah, I guess if you really wanted to, you could look me up on Facebook. But yeah, I don't even know why I still have it. I don't even look. But you can find our films on onegenomeshort.com and also on YouTube.
Kyle?
You can find me on Facebook, but I don't accept friend requests from people I don't know. So the odds of getting me as a friend are pretty low. Also, I'm going to be starting a live journal where I'm going to be doing some Star Wars /fic. So if anyone's interested in any of that, I'll read that out on the next episode. I think there are some pretty titillating scenes between Emperor Palpatine and Kylo Ren that everyone is going to be talking about. Let's just say there are more things you can get 3 prongs on than a lightsaber.
Will C-3PO be making an appearance?
Yes, but he is. The C stands for. Well, I can't say that actually. But Golden Shower is his nickname. Not Golden Rod.
Forced love. There's nothing like it.
So you are staying true to the EU then. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, I will. Yes, there are no legacy books here. Everything that happened in the extended universe happens in my books. Chewbacca's dead, but that doesn't stop him from getting a boner. That's a different story, though.
Jesus.
Thank you. Auditioning already? I'm going to try to get some audiobooks going. Audibles.
Good.
I love this shit.
Good. You can find me on. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you can find our films on YouTube. Just search Southsider Studios. And we would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. And if you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For November, we go back to the 90s when action heroes did the splits and wore shoulder pads. As Time Cop and Judge Dredd go neck and neck to find out who is the law.
I get that reference. I know that reference now.
Yes. My body is ready for this.
Is your mind?
I don't think so.
For Kyle, Gabe, Andrew, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick. Nothing? No one? All right.
So, has everyone
we can
seen
workshop some more /fic?
I remember watching one of them and went, damn it, that's a perfect line for the end of the show, and now I don't know what it was.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. People always say it's good to unwind, but that's easier said than done. The exception, Chumba Casino. They actually make it easier done than said, or at least the same. Chumba Casino is an online social casino with hundreds of casino-style games like slots and blackjack. Play for fun. Play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sign up now and collect your free welcome bonus at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.